I'm Chef Desmond Keefe, and my favorite ingredient is the potato. From its earliest beginnings in South America nearly 10,000 years ago up until today, potatoes have found their way onto the tables of hungry people all over the globe. Some diners may only be familiar with the potato as a side dish, such as mashed, baked, and in its most popular form, French fries. This show is dedicated to the lowly tuber and celebrating the many ways that it can be served, including soups, salads, appetizers, entrees, and even desserts. I've traveled the globe and studied the cuisines of many cultures, and everywhere I've gone, each culture has celebrated the potato as a low-cost, versatile, and delicious ingredient to add to their diet. This show is dedicated to my love of potatoes, and I will be sharing my passion with you each and every week, and every show will focus on a different way that we can celebrate those flavors together. From the classics to modern, we're here to celebrate the many uses of potatoes. I'm Chef Desmond Keefe. Welcome to the Humble Spud. Today's episode is all about hors d'oeuvres. We're going to season things up with some spice-crusted scallops served over a saffron potato crepe with lemon curried relish. Then we're going to make some crab puffs with some lemon caper mayonnaise, and we're going to finish things off with a potato torta with tomato and mozzarella. What we want to start off with is getting our springform pan oiled up just a little bit. So I'm going to pour a little oil right into the pan like that, and then I'll just take a paper towel and coat the inside generously because I don't want to have that torta stick while it's baking in the oven. So now I have some beautiful panko crumbs. We're going to sprinkle those in just like that, and we will go right around like so. So we coat the inside nicely, and we'll save the rest of those for a little bit later. All right, now it is time to assemble. What we have to do is begin with our sliced red potatoes. I love these because they have a lot of great flavor, and they're going to do a good job of crisping up while they're in the oven. So the idea is it is all going to be layered, and what you want to think about is the size of your potato, because of course they're not uniform in size as they're being sliced. So try to use the small ones on the bottom because the top layer will be also a layer of potato. So therefore, hang on to that layer as it goes. So what I'm doing now is just filling in the center. And so I've got my bottom layer all set. Next thing I want to do is start working on the layering. So I do have some shredded mozzarella cheese. I'm going to put this into my bowl, about 3 ounces. And then I have to put in some salt and pepper, a little crushed red pepper, one of my very favorite seasonings. And then I have some chopped anchovies right here also. I'm going to put that right in, and so that's going to add a beautiful flavor when it comes to that. I'm going to add a little bit more of my olive oil, just like that, and then we will give that a stir. So now we'll continue with our layering by adding some of these beautiful diced tomatoes that I have right here. Okay, so we're going to spread a layer just like that. Now, I always like to make sure I remind people that you should season as often as possible. Take every opportunity to season. So therefore, I'm going to throw a little bit more salt and pepper right on this next layer before I add my first layer of cheese. So here we go with our cheese, with the anchovy, and just a little oil, salt and pepper. All right, so now we're going to work on our second layer of the potatoes. So it's like dealing a deck of cards. You know, you're just trying to make sure that you have an even layer as you spread them out, just like that. All right, now remember, it's all going to go into the oven, get pressed down, and we'll cut these into nice wedges for our hors d'oeuvre party that we're going to have a little bit later on. All right, once again, we always want to make sure we give it a little seasoning. So there we go, salt and pepper. And I like to mix the salt and pepper together. It just makes it that one less step to think about later on. Now we have that tomato again. This is layer 2 of our diced tomatoes. In they go. And then another layer of my cheese. All right, there we go. And another layer of potato. I know it starts to seem like, when is he ever going to finish? But the truth is that it will be worth it, because you're going to get all those flavors and textures as it cooks together and gives you that nice crunch that we want from a red potato. Now, red potatoes, of course, also known as waxy potatoes. That's the style, you know, that we have for that. And the reason why we like those for this dish is because they crisp up so well. So that's one of the reasons why I just love red potatoes. All right, now, I don't think any holiday is complete without having some roasted potatoes on there, and I always use red potatoes when I do roasted potatoes for a holiday gathering. Continuing to add my seasoning. One last layer of cheese. Now you can use fresh mozzarella, you can take mozzarella that has just been, you can even purchase grated mozzarella if you want to. So it's all about having something nice and gooey that's going to be stretching when it ends up on the table for the guest. So there we are there. We have some nice big potato slices that are going to go on the top. So this way you'll have a nice presentation that you're going to be using for your torta. And there are the last couple pieces, so we planned that out pretty well. Now, one last layer, seasoning. And then what we want to do is a little bit more of the olive oil. And we're going to drizzle that right over the top. And that'll give it an opportunity to get good and crispy as it is cooking. All right, time to go in the oven. We're going to take our torta and go it in the oven at 375 degrees for about 45 minutes. So what I've done is I've taken it out of the oven and I've transferred it onto this rack for a minute because I wanted to let it cool just enough before I'm going to slice it up. At this point, what we'll do is we'll transfer it onto our cutting board, just like that, and I'm gonna give it a nice little slice into the wedges that we're going to be serving our guests. I always find it easy to cut it into wedges that are almost like the face of a clock, so go all the way around, sort of like you're cutting a pizza. And so then we have it like so, and onto our plate, torta with mozzarella and tomato. So now it's time for our spice crusted scallops with the saffron potato crepes. Oh my God, I love this dish. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take some of this beautiful saffron right here, and we're gonna put it right into this heavy cream that we have right on the stove. So it's gonna just infuse a little bit. So what I'm doing is just giving that a little bit of a stir, and by doing this, we'll get all the flavor and the color out of those saffron threads for when we add that to our dish. The other thing that we have to do is we also have to work on our lemon curry relish, and on that lemon curry relish we have to do a simple serve. So I've got my segmented lemons that we have already right here, and then we're just going to pour this hot sugar water over the top and allow those to just cook up a little bit and get some of that sugary flavor to the start of our dish. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is work on getting our potatoes ready for the crepes. I have boiled them already, so we're simply going to strain those out right into that bowl like that. Sometimes certain dishes actually suggest that you save the potato water, particularly for baking. In this case here, we don't need it because we're going to use the cream and some eggs for the liquid. So what I'm going to do now is take my pot, and we are going to use one of my favorite little tools here. This is the potato ricer. We put those right in like that. Oh yeah, going to take a couple of batches to get this done. So then we squeeze it in, just like so. All right. And of course, one of the reasons why we use the ricer versus a food processor is because we don't want our potatoes to get all gummy, which is what happens when you end up mixing your mashed potatoes with, you know, a food processor or something like that. So that's the thing that we want to do there. So now that we have that all set, we're going to grab our whisk and we'll rinse it off for a second. And we want to add our flour. So we've got some flour right here that we're going to add to our potato mixture. And we'll stir that in, just like that. All right. So now we've got a beautiful consistency on that. At this point, I can take that out and I'm going to grab my spoon that I have and we'll add that infused cream right into the potato mixture that we have, just like that. All right, we're going to stir that in just like that. Beautiful. All right, getting a nice color in there. So now I have some eggs. I have whole eggs and some egg whites. We're going to get that out of our way for a moment. And so I'm going to add my eggs one at a time. So I already cracked them, so I'll just put one in, just like that, and give that a stir. It's getting that gorgeous yellow color that we want from the saffron and, of course, the egg. And then we'll put another one in. Just keep going. Now it's getting a little bit thin, so it's at the point where we could switch to our whisk again, which I'm going to grab right over here. And then I've got 3 egg whites that I'm going to add to the batter right here. We're going to let that all whisk up nicely. So we're going to give that a good stir. Now, if you wanted to, you could certainly use a mixer to do this or something to that effect, so it'll make it a little easier. But we have the consistency that we needed to be able to make the batter. And now, as you know, whenever you're making a crepe batter, you have to let it stand for a little bit. So while that's standing for a little bit, before we actually start our crepes, we're going to continue to work on our relish. So now that I have infused or steeped my lemons a little bit, I'll strain them back out, just like that. And so we've got those nice lemons. We're going to set those to the side. And it's time for me to start dicing up my onions to saute them for my relish. So now it's time to finish our lemon curry relish. First thing I'm going to do is get a little oil in my pan, just like so. And then I've got some chopped up onions right here that I'm going to throw right in and give that a nice saute. Okay, give that a toss. Going to do that around. So while it's just starting to saute, I can add that curry powder in because we want to get that flavor incorporated in as much as possible. So let's get that nice and hot. We saute. So the next thing if you'll remember, I've got those beautiful lemons that we poached off earlier. We're going to put those right in, and there's a little bit of that sugar water, and I'm going to put that right in there too. All right. Now you can hear that sizzle as it's doing its work. All right, so now I have a little bit of rice wine vinegar. I'm going to put that in and some white wine. All of those go in there, and we're going to let that simmer for a couple of minutes before we add our chopped cilantro, and then that'll reduce down into a nice relish that we're going to be serving with our scallops. So the next step after this is to start working on getting our crepes together. We made our batter, so we're just going to assemble those. And then finally, the last thing, of course, is to sear off those scallops. We don't want to cook those too far in advance because then they'll overcook and that won't be a very pleasant experience for the guests that are coming to your party. So here we go. All right, so this looks great. I'm going to get all that nice chopped up cilantro in there and let that do its work. There we are. So that's going to need to simmer for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then it will be ready to serve. So now it's time to cook our spiced crusted scallops and the saffron crepes. Here we go. So I've got a nice non-stick pan that I like to use whenever I'm making crepes. It just makes it so much easier to get them to cooperate when that time comes. Then we've allowed our batter to rest for a little bit. I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in here and let that come up to temperature. And in the meantime, I've got some heat going on underneath of my saute pan here, and we're going to put that with a little bit of oil as well. This is my spice mix, which has a lot of coriander and cumin and salt, pepper, and just a little bit of confectioner's sugar. So I'm going to put that, and then I dust off the excess and put that right into that pan and allow that to sear very nicely. As you can see, it's got some good color and bubbles going on. Meanwhile, I've got my batter over here, and this pan is nice and hot. So we're making these bite-sized, don't forget. So we'll get it just about maybe a silver dollar size, just about like that. All right, so now I want to turn that down just a little bit so it doesn't color too much. And in the meantime, I've got this scallop dish going on right here. And so we're going to be plating in just a second, that going perfectly. And as you can see, we're starting to see some bubbles around the edges of our crepe, and that's exactly what we want. And so what we're going to do is just try and loosen it up a little bit around the edges so it'll come loose. There, it's sliding nicely now. Meanwhile, it's time for me to turn this over. As you can see, I only did the spice crust on the one side. And so now it's got that gorgeous sear and color that we want on there. And so now I'm able to go right underneath, flip my crepe over. Nice, nice, nice. Turn that down just a little bit to let it cook all the way through. So one of the things that I love about this dish is the complexity of flavors. I've got the curry, I've got the spice blend, I've got the nice fennel salad that's going to go over the top of everything. So here we go. All right, I'm going to turn that off. We'll turn this off. We're going to transfer our crepe right onto our plate. And now we have some of that beautiful lemon curry relish that we made earlier. And that's going to go right onto the crepe, just like that. And after that, we'll take our scallop that we've got perfectly seared, and that's going to go right on top there. And finally, I have a nice little salad of fennel with a little lemon juice and olive oil, and that's just going to get sprinkled right on top like that. And now you've got another gorgeous potato hors d'oeuvre to serve to your guests for your hors d'oeuvre party. So now it's time to make our crab puffs. And with our crab puffs, we're going to use Dauphine potatoes. Dauphine potatoes are basically pâte à choux with the addition of mashed potatoes. And of course, if you're not familiar with pâte à choux, that's that cooked dough that we use when we make eclairs and cream puffs. So it's a cooked dough, like I said. So here's what we're going to do to get started. We're bringing our pot to a boil, and we have just a half a cup of water in here, and then just a few tablespoons of butter. That's going to go into our water, and that's going to come to a bit of a boil, like that. So we're waiting for this to melt, which is happening very quickly. And once we do that, we'll be able to add our flour and then start working on our potato. So we're just going to wait one more second here. Now the beauty of this dish is, again, it's got that great flavor of the potato that we love. And these are going to be russet potatoes that we're using this time, which is a fabulous flavor. And that's what I'm really excited about with this particular dish. And then, of course, it's going to get served with a nice lemon caper mayo that we're going to work on in just a minute. So we're almost there. I want to make sure that it has completely melted. And then we will add in our flour, as I mentioned. I can probably add, I have a little bit of salt, pepper, and nutmeg here. I'll sneak that in right now just to get that going. There we are. All right, perfect. Butter is melted. So now I'm going to take my flour and whip that in. And the thing about this is that, you know, it turns kind of a mess at first, but then it comes together as a ball, and we stir it until it starts to form a film at the bottom of the pan. And so that's what we're looking for here, and we can just about see that happening. And so now we can turn that off. All right, And now that it's done doing that, okay, perfect. All right, so now I'm going to start adding my eggs one at a time. And now it's very hot, so we want to stir very quickly so that we don't end up cooking our eggs, scrambling them. So there we go. There goes one. Stir, stir, stir. And it turns very gloppy at this point, but it will come back together again. And that's the goal to this. And then, so that one's thoroughly incorporated. So now we'll add the second one. In we go. And then the idea is we look at this as being one of those kind of things that's not as scientific as most baking recipes, which means that we're going to end up saying, okay, does it need 2 or 3 eggs? And the way we determine that is we kind of pick it up, and if it drops off really easily, we know it's got enough eggs in it, which it did not. So we're going to crack one more egg, which is almost always the case, and we'll put that one in there too, and there we go. Whisk, 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 so we can get that to the consistency that we want. Nice and gloppy. Okay, there we are there, and that is coming off to the spoon just the way we want it. Perfect. All right, and the heat is off, which is what we want. So at this point, we can take our potato. We're going to put that potato right in, just like that, and we'll incorporate that. This is 3/4 of a pound of russet potato that I peeled, boiled, mashed through the ricer, and then I have it all ready to go to add into my potato mixture. So now we have our Dauphine potatoes. It's always a good idea to taste when it comes to things like this. I think it needs just a little bit more of my salt and pepper. All right. So this is perfect. Now what we're going to do is start working on our crab so that we can incorporate that into our Dauphine potatoes. All right, so now it's time to make the crab filling. So I've got some beautiful crab meat right here. It's about 6 ounces that we've got. We've already picked through it to make sure there wasn't any shells or cartilage or anything like that in there. And then all we have to do is take what we have here, which is a little Worcestershire sauce and some Old Bay seasoning that I mixed together in advance. There we go there. And then I have some diced red peppers. Very simple little mixture that is going to add a ton of flavor. So there we have those guys, just like that. And so now that we've got that all mixed up and broken into smaller pieces, I'm going to take my Dauphine potatoes and we're going to mix those in just like this. So we'll get our rubber spatula so we don't lose any of that because we want every last bit. So now let's get a nice mix going here. So we want to thoroughly incorporate our crab meat into those Dauphine potatoes. So we have a good mixture for when we make up our cakes in just a minute. So that's what we're planning on doing here. As you can see, we've got a nice mix all set. All right. Now we're going to need to let that sit in the refrigerator for just a minute before we start making up our cakes. So here are my crab cakes. We portioned them out and cooled them for a little bit so that they'll hold together when they get into the fryer. Now I'm going to go over to my breading station. So I have some seasoned flour, some cracked eggs, and some panko bread crumbs. So we'll start off with our very nice crab cake right here. Standard breading procedure. In we go. And then we're going to turn that over and to the egg, and then finally into our breadcrumb mixture, like so, and right into our oil it goes, just like that. And while that's working, let's get another one breaded up, just like so. So again, as I've always mentioned, I make sure that you season every opportunity, so I season salt and pepper into all 3 of these items. I've got them in my breadcrumbs, I've got them in my egg, and I've got them in my flour. So I don't want to splash, so I'm going to let that go in nice and gentle, just like that. Let's see if we can get one more going here in that pan. So here we go here, flour. Of course, it's, it's one of those kind of messy jobs, when you're working at the counter, you might end up having a little flour here, a little flour there, but it's well worth it in the final preparation. And I can't wait to see these all finished up. So let me quick rinse my hands off here. They are looking gorgeous. Getting a little color right on the bottom. Yep, there we are. So we're going to turn that over just like so. And then again, we'll let that kind of slide right over. Pull it to the edge, let it slide back in. Oh, look at that. That is absolutely spectacular. I can't wait. That golden brown is the color we're looking for. That's going to make it crispy and flavorful. You've got all of the crab going in there. That makes it so succulent. One of my favorite things in the whole world right here. Now, you know, it's up to you. You can make these even tinier if you want to, if you're looking for just a single bite. Or in my case here, I've got them a little bit bigger. I want to have it be like a 2 or 3 bite, and we're going to plate it. So it's all about whether or not you're going to be serving it as a passed hors d'oeuvre or if you're going to plate it as we are right here. All right, so this is perfect. So I'm going to turn that heat off, and I will transfer this onto with this paper towel that we have right here, just like that. Flip that one over, and there we go. So I'm using a vegetable oil here. I love olive oil, and that is usually my preference, but when it comes to frying, I find that a vegetable oil is a lot better way to go because it doesn't burn. The olive oil does have a lower smoke point, so of course that means that it will burn before the item is cooked the way we want it to, so that tends to be how I use that. Okay, and so now we're going to go over and make our lemon caper mayonnaise and plate up. And now it's time to make my lemon caper mayonnaise. So the first thing I'm going to do is grate up this lemon so we'll get some nice zest for flavor. And I always try to encourage anyone working with lemons to zest the lemon first because you're going to get that extra amount of flavor from the outside in addition to the juice that we're going to end up getting in just a second. So there's that zest. We're going to pick that up. We'll get that out of our way now. And we'll transfer it into our bowl. Then we'll cut the lemon in half, and we'll just squeeze it by hand like that. We're going to go old school here. There we are. Next, just make sure we don't put any seeds in there. That's always something we don't want people to end up running across while they're enjoying their hors d'oeuvre. Okay, now we have some beautiful caper berries here. So you're all probably very familiar with capers, but caper berries are the ones that have even more robust flavor. And you can see they got that little stem on there. We'll cut that off. We're going to put like probably 4 of these in there. We'll transfer the rest like that, and we'll just give that a nice thin slice, just like so. When I was a kid, I used to cut without looking like this, and Mom would get so nervous and think that I was going to cut myself, and I wanted to show off because that's who I am, and I have fun with it all the time. There we go. So those are all chopped up very nicely, and we'll put those in there. And so now we've got some mayonnaise. Going to transfer that in just like that. I've got some Dijon mustard. We're going to transfer that in, and then we can mix all of this up in our bowl, and we can tell that there's just a ton of flavor happening here. A flavor bomb, as I like to say. All right, let's get a little salt and pepper in there, just because. There we go. Beautiful. All right, so now it's time to plate. So we've got our nice skateboard plate right here, and we're going to transfer one of our beautiful crab cakes onto that plate. And now we're just going to give it a nice little smear right there like that. And then we can even put it on top just a little bit just to give it a little more drama. And that is our crab puffs made with those beautiful Dauphine potatoes served with a lemon caper mayonnaise. Tune in next time when we'll be sweetening things up with some potato desserts. We'll be making a chocolate sweet potato cake with a broiled topping, some potato donuts, and a potato almond cake.